Yo, what's up, everyone? Back for Monday night Week 4 picks between the Bengals and the Steelers. Hopefully, you guys all had a good Sunday of DFS. Finally had a good Sunday here. Focused a lot on the afternoon games. Had a great defense in the Bears. Wilson wasn't great, but Fournette went off with over 200 yards rushing. Johnson was a monster in the receiving game. None of those guys got into the end zone, which kind of sucks, or else this would have been a huge line. But Kupp got there late in the fourth quarter with Goff throwing for almost 500 yards. Disley was fine at tight end, so just got there with 154 on Draftkings and FanDuel with the 127. So also the afternoon slate's cashed as well, so looking to keep it rolling on Monday. If you want to join us, you can visit the website, dfsprocess.net. NBA sale ends on Saturday this week if you want to get in on the early bird. Before we get into this video, I would appreciate if you would drop a like down below and subscribe if you haven't already. It's not a super pretty game here, but we have a divisional rivalry here between these two teams. Both quarterbacks are Dalton's struggling, even though he's throwing for a lot of yards. His team's not winning, and Rudolph, don't really know what to expect from him. But Connor's your most expensive guy here. He's really looked bad here. With no Big Ben, teams have kind of just loaded the box when he's in the backfield, and it's been tough for him to get any running room. He's averaging less than 3 yards per carry. This Bengals team is a pretty good recipe if you're struggling on the ground, so definitely have interest in Connor at 10-6 or in the flex where he's, at 10-6 in the flex. Juju looked pretty bad last week. He did get 7 targets. He got almost all of his yards came on one catch, which went for over 70 yards, but he hasn't been able to connect that much with his quarterback, Rudolph. It's only been one game, so I expect Juju to be better as he gets more chemistry. But as of now, 10-4. It's not a great price to play on the showdown slate. I think going with a couple receivers that are cheaper on the Steelers both seem to have better chemistry with Rudolph than paying up for Juju. So, I'm going to take a stand and not have Juju. Oh, no, if you're just making one team like I do, probably not going to have Juju in it. I like Dalton at 98. Even though his team is struggling, he's still throwing for a lot of yards. He's averaging over 320-something yards per game. He does struggle with the interceptions, but it's a good matchup against the Steelers. They've been really bad against quarterbacks and against defenses in general. I'm expecting this game to be semi-high scoring. Dalton's probably going to have to throw a lot since Mixon hasn't been able to do much on the ground yet. But I like Dalton. I like the Bengals side quite a bit. They're pretty concentrated here with who they play. If you look here at the snap counts, you can get a lot of knowledge just by looking at how they change from week to week. So in week number 3, they run three wide receiver sets. They were dominated by 3 guys. John Ross, who played all 61 snaps, 100%, followed by Boyd and Tate, who is a newcomer after didn't see any snaps or saw very limited snaps in week 2, but that's a good sign that he played a bunch, and he played well, so I like him as a cheap play this week. Willis, who played 64% of the snaps in week 2, did nothing, so don't recommend playing him. I'd rather go to Tate, who saw 36% to over almost 90%. And on the Steelers, the same kind of thing. In week 2, we saw Moncrief played a little bit, but now he was a healthy scratch last week, and we're still going with 3 guys on the Steelers too. They both teams have 3 receiver sets that they ran in week 3, and all 3 guys dominated the snap counts. You got 100% from Juju, 92 from Washington, and 79 from Johnson. So you know exactly what to expect at the receiver position. Tight end, it's a completely different story. The Steelers are missing their 2 healthy tight ends who played all the snaps last week, except for Gentry played a little bit once they both went out. But Grimble is on on injured reserved IR, and McDonald's on, he's doubtful. So you could probably play like Nick Vanette here. And on the Bengals, they don't really play Eifert the entire game. It's more of a 50-50 approach. So if I had to pick between the tight ends or the receivers, I'll probably go with the receivers just because they're playing 90+% of the snaps compared to like 50 for Eifert. All right, so that gives you some background on this slate. But talking about the players, I think we're up to Rudolph. At 96, he's fine at home. He should get better as the season goes on, as he gets more games under his belt. he's fine at 96. If I had to pick one, I would just go with Dalton just because you kind of know what you're getting from Dalton more than you know with Rudolph. I like Boyd. He's getting 10-plus targets every game. He is the go-to guy for Dalton. He's playing, as I just showed you, almost all the snaps. He hasn't found the end zone yet, but when you get targeted that much, you're bound to find your way into the end zone very soon. So I like him. Mixon's fine. He also has not got a rushing touchdown. He has one touchdown on the season, not getting a huge factor in the receiving game. I think this is a week where I'm probably going to focus more on the receivers on this showdown than go with the running backs, except for maybe Connor. But Mixon, I'll probably just go to Boyd or go down to Ross. Both guys have big play upside. The Steelers have given up their top 10 in 20-plus yards, big play given up of at least 20-plus yards. Ross is a burner. He's going to get down the field. Dalton has taken some shots with him the first 2 games, and last week they struggled. It was a good defense, though, on the road in Buffalo. It's a completely different story here facing the Steelers, who have been getting shredded through the air. I like Ross a bunch at 84. And now we get into the cheap Steelers receivers that I like, point per dollar wise. Both guys, Deontay Johnson, as I showed you, he took over as a wide receiver 3, playing about 80% of the snaps last week, and he played well. Got 6 targets. He's fine at 66. Same thing with Washington. He was the receiver. He played with Rudolph in college, so they have some chemistry already. He only had 2 catches, but I expect their chemistry to they already have chemistry, but I still expect him to have some big games in the future just because he's playing almost all the snaps, and he should get some targets from Rudolph. They don't have much to go to besides, Juju and Washington. Now that their tight end's really banged up, they're probably going to focus more on the receivers here. And then Eifert's fine at 52. He doesn't get a ton of volume, but the Steelers are pretty bad against tight ends, so he's fine if you want to go with a tight end here. And then Tate's the other guy. I'd probably go to Tate over Eifert just because, as I showed you last week, he dominated the snaps, and he got 10 targets and looked really good out there. It was a tough defense, but it's a much better matchup here against the Steelers, playing 90% of the snaps at 4,800. You can sign me up for that. And then Vanette, if we get word that he's going to play a lot, then he's fine at 4,200 if you need a tight end. But I think it's going to take a little bit of time for him to get comfortable with Rudolph, and I think they're probably going to focus on the receivers and maybe just use him sparingly or just for blocking or not much through the air. So don't have a ton of interest in him, but I think he's viable if you play a bunch of teams. And then you get both kickers. I'm not super interested in the kicking on this slate. I think there's going to be some touchdowns scored, and I want to get the receivers and I want to get the quarterbacks in. And I don't see myself going to anybody cheap down here. So that's kind of where I'm at on this slate. It's pretty condensed player pool. So let's look at some builds here. At captain, go with Andy Dalton at 14.7. You can compare him with his 2 favorite receivers, John Ross. You compare him with 3 of his top 3 receivers, Ross, Boyd, and even go to Tate here. You're getting all the volume at the receiver position. If he throws touchdowns, great chance it comes from these 3. Unless Eifert vultures one, but it's a great chance with, they run a bunch of three wide receiver sets, and they're going to be dominated by these 3. And then still get your exposure to the Steelers because they're going to score some on the other side, and you get exposure to both of the cheap receivers, James Washington and Johnson here. So I love this. You get all the receiving, you get a quarterback, but you get all the guys with big play upside. Besides Juju besides Juju, you're getting all the receivers that you want in this game. 5 of the top 6 receivers you have, and both teams have struggled to run the ball, so we could see them just go to the air a lot. So I feel myself liking this one quite a bit. You can always just mix and match with the captain here. If you think Ross is gonna have a big game, play him at captain. He's not particularly expensive. You do save about $900 going from Dalton to him, and then with that 8,800, you can go up to Mixon. All right, I thought I played Ross at captain. I played Boyd at captain. If you go with Ross here, you could even play Boyd. They're all both fine. And then 10,000, you could even play Rudolph here. So you get Ross, Dalton, Johnson, Rudolph, Washington with Tate and Ross. Now you are fading Tyler Boyd here, but No problem with it. You get both quarterbacks. You get a big play guy at captain that, if somebody's gonna have a big game, Ross can just break the slate, and for those people that played him at captain, they're gonna win all the money. But if you do want to go Boyd, you can do that and just leave money on the table and then see if you can move up, from like Dalton to Connor here. So you can mix and match what you want, but my player pool is pretty condensed on both sides. On the Bengals, I'm looking at Andy Dalton. I'm looking at Tyler Boyd, John Ross, Tate, for the most part, those four, and Eifert as well, a little bit, as a fifth guy. And on the Steelers, it's going to be Connor, Rudolph, Washington, and Johnson. I'm not going to have Juju this one just because tough to fit him in if you're playing the quarterbacks, and I would rather go with the cheap receivers on the Steelers and pay up for Juju. Just a gut feeling that I have, just because I want to play some of these expensive receivers on the other side, and playing Juju makes it kind of tough to do that. But yeah, that's what I like for this one. Let's go back to what I had originally, just because I think that's what I'm rolling with, or that's my favorite one for this one as of now. So we had Tyler Boyd, Ross, and both receivers here, Johnson, Washington, and Tate. So I feel like this one is pretty good. It has a lot of upside, a lot of ceiling. If you want to go down, go with like a defense or a kicker, don't mind it, but I feel like kind of got the core that I like for this slate down. So thanks for watching this one. Hopefully it helped you. If you did, you can drop a like down below, and you can check out the website. Links in description. And go look this one, and we'll be back probably Tuesday for a first look at Week 5. So see you all then.